What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. The NHL offseason has officially begun, and you know what that means. It's free agency day, where all of the top stars of the NHL who are looking for new contracts sign extensions with their current team or look elsewhere to get themselves a big-time deal. Now, today we have a ton of news that broke, and I know that usually on this channel, I post some pretty heavily edited commentary content, but with how quickly things have been coming out, I wanted to get you guys this video as soon as possible. So this will be a video kind of recapping the day, just giving you guys my overall thoughts and opinions on every deal that happened without all of that extra footage and kind of editing stuff that I usually do. So if you guys have been liking the content lately and you haven't subscribed to the channel, be sure to do that now. And let's go ahead and recap this first day of the NHL offseason. All right, so let's get started with the deal that broke open this day, and that's Jake Guentzel being traded to the Tampa Bay Lightning for a 2025 third-round pick, basically just giving the organization the negotiating rights to sign him. The next day, he would sign a 7-year, $63 million contract, and this was all following them trading Sergachev as well as Tanner Jeannot just to kind of free up some space. This basically was an amazing signing from the Tampa Bay Lightning, but it also comes with some heavy notion that the team would probably not be signing Stamkos because this is such a high deal. But nonetheless, I think this is a great move by Tampa Bay. They gave up practically nothing to acquire his negotiating rights, and they are getting themselves an insane winger that's going to be perfect to pair along with Nikita Kucherov and Braden Point. Next signing of the day, the Florida Panthers re-signed Sam Reinhart to an 8-year, $69 million deal, and after he scored 57 goals last season, this one was a pretty big no-brainer for the Panthers. The question was really, was he going to ask for around $10 million, because I couldn't see them paying that kind of ticket for Reinhart, but I think this is a great move for the Panthers. They're looking to run it back with almost the exact same roster, and I think Sam Reinhart was a crucial piece to them winning the cup this year, so good on the Panthers. This one is a great signing. Next up, the Toronto Maple Leafs make a few moves this year, signing Chris Tanev after trading for his negotiating rights to a 6-year, $27 million contract, as well as re-signing Joseph Woll to a 3-year, $10.98 million contract. These are the two big moves from them, as well as signing Oliver Ekman-Larsson to a deal, really just boosting their blue line and kind of solidifying that they're going to go with Joseph Woll for the future. I like all three of these moves. I do think it kind of just bolsters their blue line a bit and solidifies that they have a top goalie moving forward, but I do think that the Maple Leafs are going to need to do a bit more, whether that's with their offense or their defense, because I like the upgrades, but I don't know if this is enough to really make them a serious contender this year. Next, let's talk about the Washington Capitals. They've made a ton of moves, so let's just recap it pretty quickly. I think the Caps have done an amazing job. They traded Darcy Kemper for Pierre-Luc Dubois, who could turn things around and be their top-line center playing alongside Ovechkin. They acquired Andrew Mangiapane from the Calgary Flames, re-signed Connor McMichael, as well as acquired Jacob Chychrun from the Ottawa Senators for practically nothing. I like all of these moves. I'm just not sure if this really threads the needle for Washington. I feel like they are still kind of miles away from the best teams in the league, but I do like the aggressive approach rather than just sitting back and letting the Alex Ovechkin final years kind of filter out. These are some solid moves from Washington, and I'm actually excited to see what they do for the rest of the season. Next, let's talk about the New Jersey Devils. They've made a ton of moves as well, acquiring Jacob Markstrom a few weeks ago via trade, and today they also inked Brett Pesce to a 6-year, $33 million contract as well. New Jersey has been pretty aggressive in this free agency market, acquiring some other players like Brendan Dillon and Stefan Noesen. They do lose Alexander Holtz, but I really do like some of the signings that New Jersey made. Clearly, they wanted to address their defensive and goaltending issues from last year, and I feel like all of these moves do exactly that. I like the moves from New Jersey. I'm very excited to see how competitive this team is next year, especially with Markstrom in that sweater. Next up, let's talk about the Seattle Kraken. They signed two big-time players in Chandler Stevenson, as well as Brandon Montour, who gets himself a 7-year, $50 million deal. The thing with the Kraken is I don't think that their roster is really ready to compete for the playoffs, so I'm not like against these moves, but it just kind of leaves me scratching my head because I don't think that they really need these two players at the moment. I think that they need to figure out what their direction is going to be, whether they're going to be a rebuilding team or if they're going to be a team that continues to compete for a playoff spot. Regardless, regardless, Montour was going to get a contract, and I do like that they're boosting their blue line a bit, and Chandler Stevenson should provide a little bit more culture to that locker room. So they're kind of middle of the pack grades. I would give this maybe a B- for Seattle. They did a pretty good job, though. I like the aggressive approach from them. Next up, let's talk about the Chicago Blackhawks looking to provide Connor Bedard with a little bit more support. They make a couple of signings today. First, Tyler Bertuzzi signs to a 4-year, $22 million deal. Teuvo Teravainen signs to a 3-year, $16.2 million deal. Pat Maroon signs for a 1-year, $1.3 million deal. Alex Martinez, a 1-year, $4 million deal. And they also grab Craig Smith for a 1-year, $1 million deal. Nothing that really threads the needle for Chicago. They definitely will be more competitive, but this doesn't really make me more confident in them to make the playoffs next season. The one thing I will say about these Chicago signings, though, is that I really don't like Tyler Bertuzzi signing here. I feel like he should have signed with a team that was more competitive. He has that natural grit that just fits well with any playoff team, and I think he would have been much better suited heading back to Detroit or Boston. But regardless, these are some nice signings for Chicago, and I think that they should be more competitive next year. Next up, veteran winger Tyler Toffoli signs with the San Jose Sharks on a 4-year, $24 million deal. Don't really like this one. I thought Tyler Toffoli should have stayed with the Jets, and I think they should have fought harder to keep him. I just feel like Tyler Toffoli has a lot to offer to any playoff team, and I feel like either this year at the trade deadline or next year, he's going to get traded to a team that's in competition for a Stanley Cup. So I don't really have any opinions on this one. I think it's just kind of a veteran ad for the Sharks and kind of a disappointing move by the Jets and Tyler Toffoli. Now let's talk about the biggest team that made such a big splash in this year's free agency, and that's the Nashville Predators. First, they signed Steven Stamkos to a 4-year, $32 million deal where he's going to be making $8 million every single season over that course. They also signed Jonathan Marchessault to a 5-year, $25 million deal, as well as Brady Shea to a 7-year, $49 million deal, and getting Scott Wedgwood to back up UC Saros in net. The Nashville Predators, coming off a very promising season, made a huge splash this year, and this is the team that I am now most excited to watch come the 2024-25 season. I think it's a little bit sad to see Steven Stamkos leave the Lightning. Obviously, they were nowhere near in his ballpark where they're offering him around $3 million, where the Preds are going to give him $8 million. I do like this move for the Predators. I think these two players, especially Marchessault and Stamkos, they're going to add a ton of scoring help to this Nashville team and make their offense incredibly dynamic. They are the team today that gets the 1 A+ grade. I think they did a fantastic job, and if you're not a Predators fan, you're going to be very excited to watch this team next season. Next up, the Boston Bruins and Vancouver Canucks. We're going to talk about both of them because they kind of just swap players around. First up, the Boston Bruins get themselves Elias Lindholm, a 7-year deal worth $54.25 million, as well as acquire Nikita Zadorov, who will now be on a 6-year, $30 million extension as well. Now, the Vancouver Canucks, in return, they acquired Danton Heinen and Jake DeBrusk, with Jake DeBrusk being signed for 7 years and Heinen now only being on a 2-year deal. These are some nice moves for both teams. I don't think that the Canucks should have held on to either of these players, and I don't think that the Bruins should have held on to Jake DeBrusk as well. I think that Elias Lindholm addresses a clear need that Boston had. They need a top-line center, and I think Nikita Zadorov provides some more grit and a bit more offense to this Bruins team that needed to get more pucks in the back of the net. For the Vancouver Canucks, I think Jake DeBrusk is going to be a great fit there. He's from the area. He's a dynamic winger, and I think his game, while it has been inconsistent at times, should fit in nicely with that Vancouver Canucks squad, as well as Danton Heinen, providing them with some scoring in their bottom six as well. Great moves for both teams. Nothing that's too crazy. I think most people expected all of this to go down anyways. Next up, the Columbus Blue Jackets get aggressive this year, signing Sean Monahan to a 5-year, $27.5 million deal. I think this is a great move for the Blue Jackets, and again, I think the Winnipeg Jets let this player slip out of their hands. He was a great piece for them all playoffs long and the regular season, and I feel like they kind of missed the mark letting him go, but I love the signing for Columbus. Reunite Monahan with Johnny Gaudreau and put yourself back in the mix of things, trying to establish a new culture over with the Blue Jackets after being in the lower draft picks for the past 5 years, it feels like. Next up, the Detroit Red Wings change a few things. They signed Cam Talbot to a 2-year, $5 million deal, as well as re-sign Patrick Kane to a 1-year, $4 million deal as well. They also lose David Perron in this free agency sweepstakes to Ottawa, and it feels like the Red Wings really have done nothing to improve their team this year. I feel like for the Red Wings, they needed to add a bit more to this roster for their blue line and especially their goaltending. And while I like Cam Talbot, I don't think that this is really any different than signing James Reimer like you did last year. Red Wings still got to do more. I don't know if there's much left for them to sign, but yeah, it's a fine free agency for them. I think it was important for them to bring back Kane, so they did. So yeah, it was fine. Next up is the Dallas Stars. They make a couple of moves today. First, they re-sign Matt Duchene to a 1-year, $3 million deal, acquire Matt Dumba for a 2-year, $7.5 million deal, re-sign Sam Steele to a 1-year, $1.2 million contract, and bring in Casey DeSmith on a 1-year, $3 million deal to replace Scott Wedgwood, who is heading over to the Nashville Predators. These are all solid signings for the Stars. I love the addition of Matt Dumba. That should help them on their blue line. I also think that it was a great call to bring back Matt Duchene as well as getting themselves Casey DeSmith. This just really proves that the Stars liked their roster last year and think that it was good enough to win a Stanley Cup, and I'm a believer in that as well. Had the Stars had an easier road, I think they very easily could have gotten to the finals. Love all of these moves, and I think Dallas is going to be just as competitive next season. Next up, the New York Islanders finally enter the chat. They bring back Mike Riley on a 1-year contract, as well as sign Anthony Duclair to a 4-year deal. I think the Islanders really needed to do something in this free agency, and I like that rather than just sitting back and watching the rest of the teams make big time moves. They finally dipped their toes in it and did something. Great signings by the Islanders. I don't think this really threads the needle all that much, but I do think at least they did something. Just a couple bookmark deals. Jonathan Drouin re-signs with the Avs to a 1-year, $2.5 million deal. We also see veteran defenseman Matt Grzelcyk head over to the Pittsburgh Penguins on a 1-year, $2.75 million deal. Warren Fogle is heading to LA, inking a 3-year, $10.5 million deal with the Kings. The Calgary Flames sign Ryan Lomberg to a 2-year, $4 million deal. Philadelphia Flyers bring back Garnett Hathaway to a 2-year, $4.8 million extension. The Minnesota Wild ink Yakov Trenin to a 4-year, $14 million contract, as well as acquire Jacob Lauko from the Boston Bruins in a trade. The Winnipeg Jets bring back Eric Comrie again on a 1-year, $825,000 contract. The Buffalo Sabres ink a 2-year, $4 million deal with Sam Lafferty. The St. Louis Blues re-sign Kasperi Kapanen to a 1-year, $1 million deal. The Toronto Maple Leafs are bringing back Matt Murray on a 1-year, $875,000 deal. They also re-signed Timothy Liljegren to a 2-year, $6 million contract and bring back Max Domi as well to a 4-year, $15 million extension. But this is about everything that happened today for the NHL free agency sweepstakes. A lot of big time moves, but let me know which moves you guys like and which ones you think are sort of a disaster. Comment your thoughts below. Again, thank you guys for watching. As always, like this video and subscribe to the channel. I will see you guys in the next one.